Hello, I am Andy Grant, and welcome to Real Men Feel. Real Men Feel is all about encouraging men to allow and express all of their emotions, because there really are no such thing as good or bad emotions. All emotions can serve you if you let them be expressed and flow through you. And any emotion can be a disservice to you. Any emotion can be bad if you stuff it, deny it, try to repress it, or resist it. So that's what we're about, letting those feelings flow. Even as a man, even if you're taught you're not supposed to let them flow, guess what? You are. It's okay. So whether this is your first time joining us or you've been a long-time listener, thank you very much for being here. You certainly do not need to be a man to partake in the show. We've had many female guests and listeners, and that's all good. The Real Men Feel podcast is produced live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find show notes and more information at realmenfeel.org. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes at realmenfeel.org/iTunes. Be sure and give us a rating or a review while you are there. You can also find the show on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. Follow us on Twitter at realmenfeelorg and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/realmenfeelshow. This is a weekly program. Sometimes we have scheduled guests. Sometimes, like tonight, we just let it rip and see what happens. Comments, feedback, participation are always welcome during the live show and anytime in the Facebook group, on Twitter, or at realmenfeel.org. Any links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. So again, with all of the Real Men Feeling intro and housekeeping out of the way, hello and welcome to my co-host and friend, Appio Hunter.
Hey, Andy. Have you noticed that our introduction just keeps getting slightly longer every week?
See, I thought I made it shorter this time.
It was awesome. I honestly love the introduction. And every time that you added a new little twist to it, I'm like, I like that. So it's really good. I'm enjoying the fact how it's just evolving as we move along.
Well, good. Yeah, if I said the same thing every time, I'd just be bored out of my head before the show started. So I have to change it up to entertain myself at least. So this week's show, we're calling it Men in Depression, You Are Not Alone. Because if you've listened to probably any episode in the past, or if you're familiar with me, if you look at it in my books, read my blog, I've always been very open about my decades of dealing with depression and suicide. I'm actually a survivor of multiple suicide attempts. Appio has also shared that he's had battles with depression in his life as well. Mm-hmm. So we really wanted to bring this out because men don't talk about this. It's a secret. It's kept a little more quiet. And this actually, for me, this is the first December in 3 years that I have not been depressed. Last year, on this very week, I was communicating with a mysterious person in China about to buy cyanide because I thought that was my best solution. And I actually, for the first time since last December, I went into that account and looked to see the date, and it was this week that was all going down.
You know, it's interesting, Andy, because I remember we've talked about this particular week and, you know, how what you went through last year and the year before and the year before that. But you never mentioned the cyanide bit. You told me a lot of other stuff, but you never mentioned that. So that's interesting.
That was, and again, so it's weird and twisted because so much of a human being in a good state, you want to take action. You're here to take action. Right. But that was a time where I was taking negative self-destructive action. And that's kind of what perplexed me so much. Like, you know I don't want to die, but here I'm feeling glum and droopy and I'm not inspired. And what is this? And the more I'd focus on it, the lower I'd feel. So I was actively joining, pro-suicide groups and in these blogs and hearing people trade advice. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I'd find a way. And then that way is not available anymore. And instead of like, oh, look, the universe is showing me that's not the way. I'd be like, no, damn it, I must find another way. And then I'd be like, why am I doing this? Why am I trying so hard to go down this road that I know isn't the road for me?
Right. Well, at least you didn't book a trip to the suicide forest in Japan, so.
I discovered it last December. I did not heard of that until either.
Oh, gosh.
So it's really nasty. But so it got me thinking, and, this time of year, I thought it'd be a nice topic. And then I got to thinking, Have you heard that suicides rise around the holidays?
Yes, in fact, incidences of just depression in general, but also suicides. I've heard that. I don't know how much evidence is out there. I know you were doing a little bit of research before the show, but I think it's more anecdotal than it is evidentiary. But nevertheless, I know for me, I go through the same issue. Of course, now there's an actual diagnosis for it called seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, and I do use a light box myself around this time of year because, yeah, I thrive on natural sunlight. I expose myself to it as much as possible. Kind of funny how I also like being in the shade. I don't like being directly in the sun and just roasting, but being exposed to natural sunlight has always been good. And we as human beings have evolved to thrive on that as well. So I honestly don't know how folks like that are north of the Arctic Circle, I was going to say, or south of the Antarctic Circle, but we don't have to worry about that because really it's just the researchers at at the stations in Antarctica and the penguins pretty much. But for those in the northern hemisphere, going for months without any sunlight whatsoever, I just don't know how they can do that. Yeah. A buddy of mine back in Florida did. He was stationed in the Navy for a while. He was stationed in Iceland. And during the winter months, they would actually give the folks that were stationed in Iceland like a month or even, I think, 6 weeks of leave in a southern latitude in order for them to not get into that state of depression and despair and so forth. So, and this was like back in the 70s. So apparently we've known for a long time that seasonal affective disorder can affect men. We just have never had a discussion as a society openly talking about it.
Yeah, because I know growing up, I never noticed any sort of seasonal effect or noticing the winter was worse or anything like that. But in probably the last 8 years, I have. As an adult, I do notice it and feel it. And I'm a light box user as well too. But this is the first year I haven't had to take it out. So it's been pretty neat. But I noticed that shortening day But I brought it up initially, so it's a myth that suicides increase around the holidays.
Yeah.
December is actually the lowest month for suicides.
Interesting.
Around the world, even in the dark countries all the time.
Right.
So again, it's just it could be that people that are happy notice someone that is alone and assume they're depressed. So it could be a lot of projection.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one theory I've always had, and I found it mentioned in an article today, was it could be the prevalence and constant replaying of It's a Wonderful Life. Right?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because it's a story. You see it blasted multiple times, and it's all about someone who's attempting suicide on Christmas Eve. Oh, right. That must be so common now. And, it's almost like a media-driven myth. But
yep. Lots of urban legends out there. And, then there's the other thing about, there's that perennial discussion about, well, it's the holiday season and everybody suddenly, it's like, oh, I need to go out and do good things for people. And then homeless shelters and food kitchens and everything else. They're suddenly overwhelmed with people who wants to, volunteer just so, they can feel good. Again, this is all anecdotal, and stuff I have experienced for sure. I mean, I myself have been bitten by the service bug more so during the holiday season than during the rest of the year. And then of course, there's that discussion, why don't we do it the rest of the year? Blah, 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 blah. And it just kind of goes on and can make people feel worse, or it makes them more conscious.
And I found in the most recent times when I've been really depressed, it's often been, at the launch of my book, Still Here, or it was before I ever gave my first public speak about my own discovery and journey. And it's often like, you sure you don't want to feel that way? You sure you want to be alive? Let's give you another taste to see if you're strong enough and resilient to go forward. It's always been interesting. And we were talking before we started the show that I've been noticing feeling depressed and having depression. I've always just I didn't realize there was a distinction.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yesterday, almost like in practice for tonight's show, I was feeling down, and then I was teary, and I was like, what's going on? And as I'm like, instead of just going, oh, here I am, I'm depressed, I was like, wait, let's slow it down. And, I'm frustrated, things haven't gone the way I wish they had for everything this year. Feeling, there can be some worry, there can be some fear. But yeah, this isn't depression. Huh. And it's not even depressed.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was doing some of my rituals that are part of the things to keep me going, which,
Right.
one of the mistakes I made in previous years that I just stopped doing everything that works to keep my mood up. But I continued today, and I'm doing one of my rituals, and I start sobbing, like hard, freaking wailing, sobbing, like what is going on? And that's never happened before. But then I go and look at the name of it, and it was, the prayer of healing, and it was all meant to be a release. As I'm looking at different messages and of the day, and you get the super full moon happening, and all these things about letting it go and releasing everything from the year, ready for the new year, and it just got me thinking of like, can you be depressed but not have depression?
I would say yes. I've certainly experienced that. I mean, yes, I've had a lifelong relationship with depression. I've experienced depression most of my life, and yet there have been times that I have simply been depressed, but not been in depression.
Yeah, it's tough to distinguish.
Yeah, it is hard to distinguish.
Yeah, I think it's become, it's such a easy term to throw around. I think lots of people self-diagnose as depression. But again, frustrating things, disappointing things, sad things happen. Yes. And if we allow our emotions to flow, like clinical depression requires like a 2-week period of insomnia, loss of interest, unhappiness, having suicidal thoughts, all that. Not having an off morning, right? Yeah. But again, as someone with a history of true prolonged depression, I almost feel there's like I hate to use this word, but there's a trigger finger to really quickly claim it and diagnose, here I go again.
Right. But, no, I know what you're saying about that. Sometimes you use certain terms and you're like, ow, I don't know if I should use that or not, but sometimes it's the most appropriate term to use. And it's interesting because certainly for me, I was going through all of that. We've talked about this privately off, not on the show. And this is probably the first opportunity that I've been able to really kind of discuss this on the show and discuss it directly about how back in the late July, early August timeframe, there was all of those things started, all of the classic symptoms, loss of interest, loss of appetite. I never had an issue with insomnia. If anything, I sleep more when I'm in a state of depression versus sleeping less. So, but all the other things, and you yourself noticed that I was kind of like very slowly withdrawing. I was maintaining that, the happy public persona that I always maintain. And I myself was deceiving myself into thinking that I was okay without realizing that I was, in fact, and going into a state of depression. I mean, there's some major, major shit going on in my life, all of it actually good, but causing me to withdraw and pull into myself and not want to interact with anybody. So I was in the process of moving into a new place, starting a new job. And I mean, those are the two big major ones, but also having some critical conversations with family members that needed to be had. Setting new boundaries with folks, learning to set boundaries for myself. All of those things were all happening all at the same time. And in the process, I let go. You mentioned the rituals. I let go of my own rituals. I forgot to engage in them. I forgot to give myself permission to have fun. I forgot to give myself permission to experience everything. And wow, what a wake-up call. What a wake-up call when I realized it. And then you and I had an awesome discussion shortly afterwards, which is like, to me, like the cherry on the cake, the whipped cream on the cake, which was just a beautiful discussion. It helped me ground me and center and get myself centered back again and just, fully, and then sort of start the process of re-engaging. A slow process perhaps, but still the process of getting re-engaged again and realizing it's like I had to say no to so much stuff so I could say yes to the things that were most important to me. You and Lori and Real Men Feel and a couple of other things, the principles of joy. Those were the yeses for me. And everything else is just like, you know what? I don't want to overwhelm myself. And wow, what a relief. What a relief. Can I say I'm fully out of that state of depression? No, I'm not. But I'm certainly much clearer. I'm much more engaged. And I'm certainly much more connected to the people that are around me again. And so, yeah.
So that's really when I wanted to talk about this tonight, because I've realized it many times, but especially last year, the time I was in this, as I'm shopping for cyanide and plotting my demise and looking for ways and researching and then keeping it all. And when I finally let people know how bad I felt, that began my relief.
Yeah.
Right. Admitting it, letting someone in, not pretending. And I wonder if that was kind of your turning point this time too.
It was when you very much letting people in and first of all acknowledging it to myself.
Yeah.
And then letting people in and saying, "Oh, you know what?" It's like, oh my God, I didn't realize I fell into the trap. I fell into a trap without even realizing I had done so. Because, oftentimes, and this is perhaps even a bigger red flag for those of us who are in the field of personal development and energy work and everything else. I mean, we know so much about the link between our emotions and our thoughts. And we're so focused on thinking positive thoughts that sometimes we deceive ourselves into thinking that all is well, particularly if we go through, our rituals without really engaging in the rituals. There's going through the motions, and then there's being engaged and invested in what it is that we're actually doing. And if we just kind of go through the motions and just kind of, because it's a habit or whatever, it can really make things worse for us by, us buying into this illusion that all is well.
Yeah.
All is well. And in some ways that kind of ties into the discussion that we had with our friend Sean about, the philosophical or the New Age bullshit.
Yeah, and it's all about dropping the mask. And you can be alive and joyous and still feel like shit sometimes and feel like giving up. And I'm going, well, like, what's the point? To get really woo-woo, a lot of people think that, our soul comes to earth and be incarnate and we're wiped of our memories, because if we knew how powerful we were, we'd be like, why the fuck am I putting up with this? I'm not going to earth.
Right. Well, you bring up an interesting point, because this is something else which has surfaced a lot recently in discussions, and that is especially for those who work with energy and who process energy and who are connected to source energy, or who do a lot of channeling, and you with the Akashic records and other work that you do and so forth, the physical body, the human body, is not really designed to process that amount of energy. I mean, our bodies are amazing machines, and they can do so much. But when it comes to a spiritual energy, wow, there are times when it can be completely overwhelmed, and then it needs to go through that period of recovery.
Yeah, right. The last thing to change, your thoughts, emotions, energy, like this physical stuff, our body and flesh is the densest form. It's the last to catch up.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you could be going through fantastic changes on some aspect of yourself, but your body is tired and exhausted, and you think, oh my God, I'm all depressed. What's wrong with me?
Yeah. Absolutely, yes. It seems almost counterintuitive to think that you can experience so much joy that could trigger depression. But it's possible.
Yeah.
I swear that's exactly what happened. So much good shit happening, and I lost my shit.
Cool. So I was doing some research today, because I wanted this to be anecdotal and two men sharing their experience to encourage other men to realize you're not alone, and that if you're feeling down, if you're feeling depressed, if you're having suicidal thoughts, let someone know, because that takes the cork out of keeping that all in, and that's when the relief and the healing can begin. But just some stats that males take their lives at nearly 4 times the rate of females. So it's like, it's almost like, men mean business, and if I'm going to have this thought, I'm going to freaking do it, and I'm going to do it right. And this, distorted masculinity coming into suicide. Again, that high perception of it.
Yeah.
But females are more likely than males to have suicidal thoughts. Now, this is based on studies and reporting. So I think females are more willing to admit having suicidal thoughts.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what I thought. And again, guys want to pretend we've got it all together. For women, it's more okay to confide in your best friend and have girls' night out and talk things out.
Yes. Yes.
But every time I've ever spoken, anytime someone else had discovered of my background, male or female, they admit to me, "Oh yeah, I've had that thought." And I've seen stats. Again, it was anecdotal. A college professor told me once that some study he had seen, like 92% of Americans have a thought of killing themselves at some point.
Oh wow!
Yeah. They couldn't just take the past like, gag me with a spoon. I wish I was dead. They could have just, some comment like that even. But
right.
It's serious. It's just that common.
In a strange way, it doesn't surprise me. It actually doesn't surprise me that we may have, at the very least, had the thought. Maybe not seriously entertained it, but at least we've had the thought. And yeah, I mean, especially if you're going through a really, really massive disruption in your life, oftentimes the breakup with your first love. And that would be a great example of, where that could be triggered. It's like, oh my God, my life is over. I should just end it all and everything else. And then of course life goes on. But there's so many major life events that could happen. Absolutely. So it's not surprising at all.
And just to help people, again, we're talking about, can you feel depressed without being depression? So I've got an official list of, signs of depression. And you would, if you had these signs continuing for 2 weeks, you would truly be in a diagnosed depression. So a depressed mood during most of the day, particularly in the morning. So again, it's interesting that a depressed mood is required for depression. So obviously they can be separate then, which again, as someone labeled from a young age, I was called bipolar, borderline personality disorder, clinical depression, and you can feel depressed without suffering from depression.
Right.
Because I'm just getting that now at this ripe old age. So another symptom, fatigue or loss of energy almost every day.
Yep.
Feelings of worthlessness or guilt almost every day. Impaired concentration, indecisiveness, insomnia or hypersomnia almost every day. And that would be a sign for me. When I'm really depressed, I can sleep 12, 15, 20 hours.
Easy. Same here.
Markedly diminished interest or pleasure in almost all activities nearly every day. Recurring thoughts of death or suicide, and not just fearing death, but planning yours.
Right.
A sense of restlessness or being slowed down, and significant weight loss or weight gain. And I can joke about this. So, I know I'm not in depression now because I weigh 25 pounds more than I did a year ago. That's not, I know when mom's just not eating and I'm really losing weight, that's like, oh, this is the real deal.
I know. For me, it's the other way around. I actually, those people who have lost their weight, I go out there and find it and accumulate it. So I love those extra 30 pounds that I've gained. I would love to return them to the right floor. Just saying.
So again, this is something that I've been challenged with all my life. I wanted to share that list and talk about it because, again, you can have a bad day. Bad things can happen. Things cannot go your way. You can have upset, disappointment, frustration. You can be angry. It doesn't mean that you're in a depression, right? And again, for me, based on my experience, depression and suicide are working hand in hand. So I don't know if some people can be in a depression and never have a suicidal thought. But again, a bad day, a bad morning, some disappointment doesn't mean, oh, fuck it, I'm going to go kill myself.
Right. Yeah. No.
It's my default reaction to a lot of things for a long time.
Right. Yeah. No, I will say myself, I have been in that dark place. I was fortunate enough to be so fearful. I mean, we've talked about this before. One of the few times that fear can actually serve you. And for me, it was one of those times I was in so much fear of how my family would react. I couldn't go through with it. But boy, did I think about it a lot. And boy, there were things, I was just like, okay, what would be the best way? Driving my car over a cliff, a little dramatic, shotgun, too messy. Overdosing on pills. I don't know if my stomach can handle it. Those are discussions are going on in my own head. But the fact that it was there and it seemed like the only viable option, mind you, Happy-O, the person who has all these labels about being this very, very joyful person, which is true, for much of the time, to go through that and to think that the only viable option to truly be joyful is to just leave this life. It's a scary thing. And you who has actually attempted to do it, honestly, that's perhaps one of the things that I have admired most about you, Andy, is that you're still here. You are still here, and thank goodness the universe had other plans for it, that you were.
And again, I say to my speaker, talk about it like, I wish it didn't take me so many failed attempts before, like, yeah, this isn't working. There's got to be another way I can live my life.
Right. Yeah.
Much better way. But yeah, it's, and again, fear served me in ways too, because all the attempts I thought about, I'm like, I thought, worse than dying would be doing something myself that I'm now in a worse state. Now I'm crippled. I'm in a hospital for 8 months, whatever that is. So that kept me from, driving over the cliff. Like, how can I be sure it'll kill me? And also different concoctions. Like, well, how can I know? And again, I, thank God I am in a very gun controlled state. I couldn't go get a gun, or when I want to, I'm a ballin' mess. I'm going to go fill out my ID card so I can wait the 2 weeks to get my gun while I'm there crying in the store. I can't figure it out. I might not want to give this guy something. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Which does present, don't want to get into that particular discussion, but it does touch on the subject, which is oftentimes comes up as a result of the whole gun control discussion, which is, what is it? Is it the access to the guns, or is it access to mental health care? And, we as a society have almost like we've turned our prisons. We've turned so many institutions that were never designed to provide mental health care as warehouses for people who could use the help. But because we just want to kind of like shove them aside. We don't want to see them. We don't want to be bothered with them. Much like, what I see a lot of parents doing, I'm guilty of it with my own grandkids. You're a little hyperactive here. Have the smartphone. Go watch YouTube or something. Some Disney things on YouTube or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it happens, and I think that it's far too easy to just kind of like shove people off in somewhere where we don't have to look at them or think about them. And as a society, if we can reach that point where we can genuinely look and see and invest the resources to help people who are in that state of mental distress, emotional distress, I think that the return on investment would be significant. And if we can couch it in language of being an economic investment with a significant return, I think would be a great way of moving forward as a society to say, hey, you know what, if we can help everybody become productive members, joyful members, even if that production means that they are just living their life in the most joyful way possible.
And to one more gun comment in my book called Still Here, I talk about if you're in a depressive state, if someone in your family is, like, it's not a guns right issue, but get the guns out of the house.
Yeah.
Make it difficult to kill yourself, right? Don't make it easy. Because you can be, it sometimes, and often I found this in my case, when I got help, when I would go, oh, all right, I give up. I don't know what I'm doing. Fine. I'm taking medicine. I'm going to see a psychiatrist every other week or whatever it may be. That can be the most fragile point. So if I came home and I was a gun owner, like, well, I tried, the pills, I'm not feeling any better. It's been 48 hours, and again, if self-harm is easily accessible, I was a person who would self-harm.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Make it difficult to self-harm. I completely agree.
So hide the knives, even, to prevent overdoses, have someone else be responsible for your medication. Like, make it.
Lori, jump in.
That is why more men commit suicide than women. and I know that's not the right word, that take their life, however you want to do it, because men predominantly shoot themselves. That is,
Yes.
they use the most violent way, where women tend to take pills.
Yeah.
And so they will survive their attempts much more often than men, because most men, thank God not Andy, will use a weapon. And so there's no option. Although I will say, I met a woman when I was working at the mental health facility who tried to take her life, and she put a gun to her, underneath,
Right under.
but lived.
Wow.
And now she was going through like what you guys talked about. She had to learn how to speak and how to eat, because now she has the hole, and so there's all this stuff, and she's got a scar that came out. So it was fascinating. She was quite impressive.
Yeah.
Just as far as her resiliency, because she lived, and now she was going through all that, but it is the weapon thing. And yeah, I'm a big proponent that if you have any mental health issues, and you just don't you don't get a gun. Period.
Exactly.
You keep them in the house. You don't, because it only takes a second to be like, oh, screw it. Instead of, I'm going to go get on the treadmill and work out this feeling. All of a sudden, it's like it's over.
Yeah, and it's easy to get up on a soapbox if you've never had that experience, or if you've never had interaction with anybody who has had those mental health issues and who has had easy access to weapons and so forth. It's easy, to get up there and preach and everything else and spew and repeat what a lot of other people say. But until you're actually there, until you've actually, either experienced it personally or been exposed to people who have gone through that, and worked with people who have gone through that, it's easy to talk, but then when you're faced with it, then you start to realize it. Then the reality hits, and then where it's like the practical discussions, the practical making it more difficult, but at the same time seeking the treatment and everything. That's where it all comes in. It's not a single solution. It is a whole.
You need to do everything.
Exactly, all of it comes together.
And it's not just your house. Like when I was in high school, I knew which families owned guns. And again, thankfully, all those parents had everything was locked up. I couldn't, because I thought like, oh, I'll go sleep over at my friend's house and I'll grab that gun in the middle of the night. Cool. And I couldn't do it.
Right.
And actually this just came to my memory, and I have not shared this ever. Many of the guys, I was just on this big trip to Utah a couple months ago, all friends from high school. When we were like 17 or 18, they all owned guns, and we were all out shooting, and they handed me a gun once, and I thought, oh, this is my chance.
Opportunity.
Yeah.
Right.
And I really thought about it and been like, oh, I can't do that to these guys. I can't do that to my friends. I couldn't.
Yeah.
But again, you mentioned fear of what it would do to your family. That was the one.
Yeah.
Like here's the moment I thought I had dreamed of for a long time, but no, it's not right.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
But again, trying to look back and see like what's the first thought, what's the first feeling for me to notice it, and then realize it doesn't have to spiral. Again, I used to think, if I had tears, that meant I'm depressed, and depressed meant I'm about to try to kill myself. I didn't realize there was the whole spectrum of emotions that we can allow and are meant to express everything.
Exactly,
So I would notice, frustration would often be it, disappointment, and again, if I centered on that, if I focused on that, easily could spiral down. But feeling more empowered, taking responsibility, we're like, well, I'm frustrated, don't like this. Well, let's do something different.
Right.
As opposed to go, why does everything suck? Why do I suck? Why can't I get things done?
Yeah. It's in one of the talks that I give, I talk about, letting your emotions flow, acknowledging them, and then letting them flow and letting them go, and that the natural state of emotions is flowing. And one of the things I do is I break down the word emotion. I go, motion, everything in motion, energy in motion. The state of all energy, including emotions are energy. And the state of all energy is always flowing. We talk about an electrical current. We talk about wind currents. We talk about ocean currents. We talk about everything is always some form of current. The emotions are the same way. And every time that we resist them, every time we try to say, no, 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 or we label them and we are like, no, these are bad. I'm not supposed to, I'm not supposed to feel these emotions. These are bad, blah, 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 blah. It's like, they are what they are. Let them come, let them go. And the same holds true even with the ones that we label as good emotions. It's like, I'll never feel this way again. Well, yeah, it's true. You'll never feel that way again, but you'll feel the same emotion, but in a different way. And you'll feel it in infinite ways. The same emotion, but in infinitely different and expressive ways. And it holds true for all of them. So so for purposes of being able to express ourselves and communicate with our limited language, yes, the labels can be helpful to be able to, at the very least, know where we stand and facilitate a dialogue. But ultimately, if we can, this is just the way I look at it, reach that state where we can let go of the labels or recognize labels as simply that, labels. And instead of judging what we're feeling, just allowing them to just surface. It's like, oh, okay. And then keep right on going.
Yeah, I've often found that from in my experience that my depressed feelings would last longer if I was trying to resist them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, again, no, I don't want to be low. And it's like, wait a minute, what if I just, fine. If I'm gonna cry for 5 hours, I'm willing to cry for 5 hours.
Yeah,
and that I don't recall ever really crying for 5 hours.
Because
almost a good cry, it exhausts you. It gets that energy moving. You're like,
right? Yeah. Then you go straight to bed. And yes,
and that can be right. But that's the best thing. If you're at a point where you just survive moment to moment, if sleeping away the next 18 hours is what's get you through the next 18 hours, great. Don't condemn yourself, and again, if it's 2 weeks of sleeping 18 to 20 hours,
get some help. Definitely get some help.
Yeah. So I mean, even now or in the past, whenever, if I can find myself feeling empty, uninspired, kind of bored, aimless, goalless, and I used to think that it would bring up the quote, well, why bother? What's the point? And I didn't have an answer for that. But now I see those same feelings are really telling me, go in a new direction. Find an interest. If you feel right, and if I could really focus on what exactly was I thinking about as I realized, oh, I'm empty and goalless and aimless, and and I was trying to really notice this yesterday, and the thought that shows up is I'm a quitter. I give up. It's early and easy, and that feels like the oldest story. Because as you were pointing, like, well, if I was really a quitter, I wouldn't freaking be here still.
Right.
Yeah. So even my oldest story, when I look at my experience, it contradicts, the story I continue to have. It's, in the moments of down, but
right.
But again, when I choose to focus on the good, and now I realize, what's the point? Well, the point is to have fun. The point is to enjoy life. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And we both have probably used the phrase and been guilty of using the phrase occasionally. I celebrate the contrast, trying to kind of keep a positive attitude or put a positive spin on what it is that we're feeling. Because yes, those contrasting emotions, one of the Vedas, said a man born blind from birth can never know the meaning of darkness because he's never seen the light. So yes, those contrasting emotions and those low periods are very good, so that we can have something to compare it to and know when we're actually having the good times. But yeah, there are also those times when you just want to say, "Fuck the contrast! I want this over with."
Yeah. Right. Our growth, our expansion, our adventure, all the things that someone on the personal growth or expansive journey or the spiritual journey can say they want, but those all happen outside of your comfort zone. And sometimes the way life, source, universe wants to make us get out of our own comfort zone is to start giving us some of our old shit back, our worst feeling emotions, and go, you're going to dwell in this or you're going to rise out of it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And to that point, oftentimes when we say something that we really want something really, really passionately, but we don't know how we're going to get it, sometimes the craziest, worst possible things that we never would have chosen are exactly what gets us what we want in the fastest possible way. I mean, it's like, for instance, when I was like, when I was looking at the CX-5s for a while, which I now drive one, I was like, ooh, I like that car. I want one. But I'm like, I don't know how to go about getting one because I still have my old one. It's still working just fine and everything else. So, but I'm like, I really want one. Kind of stuck in that dilemma. How do I go about doing it? Because I know the one I have is just fine. It's working great and everything. So finally, universe comes along and just goes, gives me a nice little shot. Somebody rear into the car and totals it. So problem solved. I would not have chosen that as a way to get my CX-5 that I wanted, but it happened. And, it's like, so the universe chose for me since I was just sitting still and not making a choice.
Right. Yeah. Your inaction forced another action to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So again, we're having some fun and laughing through this, and I want to make a point that that's not to belittle anyone's pain,
not at all.
But it is actually to help all of us out of the pain.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And don't take yourself so seriously. That's a big lesson I've learned.
Take it from two people who have been down that road for a good chunk of their lives. It does reach a point. It truly does reach a point where you're able to look at it and you're actually able to turn it around and look at it through the eyes of levity. Even though, especially if you're in a situation right now where it's like, oh no. And it's like, okay, where are the guns? Where are the pills? Where are this? Whatever. Where's the car? Where's the nearest cliff? Understanding and acknowledging that, yes, we know what it's like. We have been there. But there's also hope. And there's also the light at the end of the tunnel is not the headlamp of an oncoming train. It truly is the light of hope. It truly is the light of those of us who have stood there and who have been there, wanting to stand with you. And we are standing with you. That is absolute truth.
Be willing to feel. You aren't feeling anything that somebody else hasn't lived through many times over, right? Let your ego out of the way, right? It's being tough and strong does not mean hiding. Being tough and strong means asking for help, right? The most empowering thing anyone can do, not just a man, any human being can do, is to say, I need some help. Right, I'm feeling this way, and I can't take another freaking second of it. Right?
Indeed. You know what I think might be a really good thing for us to do, Andy, in order to kind of help not only just give like a quick little pep talk, but maybe each of us share some of our rituals.
Cool.
So give some people some tools.
Yeah,
that would help.
Yeah. So one that I was recommended the longest from different counselors and ignored drastically. And I give it up when I feel horrible. Gratitude journal.
That was my top one too.
Yeah.
Funny enough, that's my, and same thing. When I'm in that space, it's like, just not wanting even to think about it. That's the first thing that goes out the window. Yet that is hands down the most powerful.
Yeah, it works. Journal. And because no matter how shitty everything is, when you're willing to open your eyes and get out of that tunnel vision and focusing on this shit, God, I mean, we all, no matter what's going on in our lives, we all have so much more to be grateful for than complain about.
Absolutely. And you know what I particularly love about the whole gratitude journal? And this is actually supported by medical studies, by neuroscience. And that is the two best ways that you can stop an entrenched habit, and that includes the habit of thought, are through procrastination and through distraction. The gratitude journal is the perfect distraction because because you can only hold one thought in your brain at a time. Now, granted, our thoughts are going at the speed of light, so 135,000 miles a second. So it seems like we're having all kinds of thoughts all simultaneously, but that's not actually the case. And when we're focused on thinking about what it is that we're grateful for, even if it means that I am simply grateful for having a pair of shoes that feel comfortable, I'm grateful that I can see, I can smell, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And if you have to take 5 minutes to think up of just one thing, it doesn't matter. The fact that you're thinking about something other than what it is that's holding you in a depressed state breaks the cycle of thought. So that's the first thing. You procrastinate. You are distracting yourself. So procrastination, contrary to what our parents told us when we were growing up, procrastination and distraction are good things when you are in a state of depression. But then we're also procrastinating that other thought. We're putting it off.
It's just like talking about in the beginning, how no emotion is good or bad. They all serve at different times. So again, procrastination, all these different things actually serve you. Fear, we talk about fear about the consequences of our actions that aren't good for us. Keeps us here. Yeah. Right. So again, every thought you have, every emotion you can have, at some point is of service to you.
Yes. Absolutely. And that brings up another point. These are two separate tools, but they go hand in hand with each other. First of all, acknowledging the feelings, and then just keep moving. Just keep moving. Just keep letting them flow.
And even so, if anyone's resistant to gratitude journaling, and my first goal was like 3 things, and then 5, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get 10 today. And before I knew it, and the real proof to me that, oh my God, this worked and I'm feeling much better, 15, 20, oh wait, I better stop now. Oh, I've got too much to be grateful for. I've journaled too long.
I actually decided to create a habit of the 5-minute power gratitude, so I could give myself 5 minutes and I try to write down as many things as I can in that 5 minutes. Sometimes it's just one thing. And even if it's the same thing over and over and over again, that's fine. Just keep repeating it because you're grateful for something.
Right.
So fine, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So yeah.
And it can be grateful. I'm grateful I have this pen. I'm grateful I have this notebook. I'm grateful I'm distracted myself from the shitty thoughts I have. Again, limitless, right? It just shift your perspective.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There are times that, you want to tell your feelings and you want to tell everybody else around you, take a hike. Well, guess what? Use that one too for yourself. Take a hike, literally take a hike. I love where I am. You've been to Utah. You know how beautiful a state I live in. And even here in Salt Lake City, where I am, we're ringed by this incredible, scenery and these beautiful, beautiful mountains. And there are lots of trails really close to where I live. And so I'm very fortunate that and I have my dog who I need to take out for a walk every day anyway. So I'm really fortunate in that regard. But even if you don't have anybody to go walking with or a pet you can walk or whatever, do it anyway. It's connecting to nature in some form, some way or shape is again, it's distracting and it is rejuvenating. Not to mention the fact there's all the physical benefits of exercise.
Right. Yeah, and to exercise outside, again, flood your eyes, flood your ears, flood all your senses with a new thing, that freshness, the crisp air, get out of that stale fluorescent light, horrible cube that perhaps you're spending so much time in, because that was a contributing factor for me for many years, and that lifestyle.
That's what I love about my new job at Thumbtack is that it's all open space. So we don't have cubicles. And we can pretty much wander around and work from any spot in the office that we choose, which was just awesome. So
awesome. Well, and I do want to share one resource for anyone that is in a state of despair, feeling hopeless. If you really are thinking about ways to end your life, it's time to reach out. If you don't have someone that you feel you can say that to, call a suicide hotline. 1-800-273-TALK is a top one in the U.S. And it's 1-800-273-TALK. I have called that very number. And just for anyone it's anonymous. No one tries to convince you anything. No one asks who you are. It's just a place to vent. And again, in my experience, I found that, I'm thinking of this, but I'm calling because I know I don't want to. I'm procrastinating. All I can think about is my death and what's going on. And, talking to a stranger, talking to a friend, talking to anyone helps it get out of you. When it's only in our mind, it ruminates. We just keep feeding on ourselves. And that's downward spiral that feels fucking horrible. Mm-hmm. When you realize another human being is willing to listen to you, and they don't hang up and go, that guy's freaking crazy. No one, it's like, wow, right? You're not sharing something that is horrifying to somebody else. You're not chasing people away. And again, my time last year when I finally broke and told someone, I had a friend from work call and say, you all right? And I started bawling on the phone like, no, I'm not. And I'm crying. And, he's still my friend. he continued to talk to me after that, which I think is a big fear for a lot of guys have. That
oh my God, yeah,
I can't go there. You know,
it's like, oh no, you're all feeling all, then it becomes no homo discussion and everything else. But it's like, no, it's and that's the thing. You brought up you triggered a thought for me, which was, every family has its dysfunctional elements. Every family has, the crazy person, but every family has at least one person who's willing to listen to you and who loves you no matter what. And every person knows who that individual is. And that's especially true for those of us who either are going through or have been through those stages of depression. We just know instinctively there's always somebody there that we can talk to and that we can reach out to, and who isn't going to judge us. More often than not, it's a sibling. But it could be a parent, it could be an uncle, it could be a cousin. It doesn't matter. There is somebody. And even if it is a family of your own creation, whether it's a friend, or a group of friends or whatever, there is somebody who's willing to listen in complete non-judgment and love. So reach out to that person.
Amen.
Yeah. Yes, Lori.
I just want to say one thing about that, all right, as a family member.
Uh-huh.
It's one of the things, one of the most common things I heard when working in the mental health facility was they don't like to bug their family members because their family members just try and fix them.
Right. And it's true. Most of them do. Vast majority do, yes.
So one of the biggest things that you, if you're feeling like crap, can do is actually tell them what you need. Which I know is extraordinarily difficult in a time when you don't think you need anything.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can just say, I just need you to sit here with me. I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to let me feel what I'm feeling because as soon as we try and fix it, we kind of make that person wrong for feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to just say, I just need you to sit here while I feel like crap. Can you sit here and be with me? It's a huge gift. And it's quite funny because when I worked at the hospital, the people that I worked with, when we talked about that, they said how empowering that felt for them to be able to be with somebody and that it was okay. But then when they were trying to help a friend who was struggling with it, they were trying to fix them. So it was fascinating. It was like, you don't like it when people do that for you, and yet, it is our instinct when we love another human being, we want them to feel good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're doing it to be mean.
Exactly.
So it's a really imperative, though, for you to actually voice it and say, I just need you to sit with me.
Mm-hmm.
I just, can you go for a walk with me, but not really talk to me while we're walking. I want to walk with somebody.
Exactly.
And I know because I was on the other side of it, right? Like I was the fixer and it did not work. And it's not good for the people trying to fix either.
Mm-hmm.
So like the boundary issues and we take on the responsibility of what are we doing wrong that the person that we love is feeling so badly. So you just want to remember that they're coming from a place of love. And so they already want to do whatever they can to help you. So for the love of God, tell them exactly what you need.
Exactly.
And if they're not capable of doing it, then find somebody else who is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I always love having you on with us, Lori, is because you have such a beautiful way of completing the circle, completing the thoughts, and making it just full and there.
Thank you.
Absolutely there. So thank you.
And I have to go let my dog out. She's losing her mind.
He's losing his mind right now too.
Sorry. I'm gonna mute myself, but thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. We should wrap this up then. But I just reiterate, however you feel, you're entitled to feel it. Mm-hmm. Be willing to feel it fully. Be willing to share it with someone else, right? If you're in that much pain that you don't feel like you can feel it, you can't take it, tell someone. Open up, right? Our willingness to ask for help, it begins the relief, right? That's been Appio's experience and my experience. And if you haven't found that to be your experience yet, just take our word for it and try it. Yeah. And again, if you need someone, if you want that anonymous connection, 1-800-273-TALK. So thanks for joining us tonight. Be willing to laugh at your own life as much as we have, right? See our healing. Right? It's not to belittle anything someone's feeling, but when you can laugh at your own depression, your own feelings, your own failed suicide attempts for me, that's just, when you know it's in the past.
Yeah. Always find a way to see it from a different perspective, from a different angle. Shine a different light on it. See the shadow from a different space.
So join us next Tuesday, December 20th. Good God, December 20th.
I know.
Easton. We'll have another episode of Real Men Feel. We're going to be joined by our guest Jordan Bain to talk about the Modern Mystery School, among many other things. But one of the big events for me this year was my introduction to the Mystery School, and I was actually initiated into the Modern Mystery School, and I used some of the rituals daily. It was one of the rituals from the Mystery School that I found myself sobbing in yesterday, and it was just this tremendous release. It wasn't like, oh no, I'm depressed and suicidal. It was like, woof, just like, wow, let's get rid of some more crap today. Right? So if you've ever heard of mystery schools, interested in them, if you don't know what the heck it means, join us. It's going to be a really interesting show. Until then, check us out at realmenfeel.org. Join the Real Men Feel group on Facebook. Share what you thought of this show. Give us a review on iTunes. Comment on the blog. Share it. Reach out to us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. If you have any more private conversations or comments you'd like to make, we can receive them that way too. So thank you, Lori. Thank you, Appio. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we look forward to talking with you again soon. Be well.
Absolutely. Be well.